Apple and Samsung already own the factories, the supply chains, the chips. Slapping an AI badge on top shouldn't add $100 to the price. Your phone got better at autocorrect, smarter maps, better emoji. None of that required a hardware revolution. The assumption AI is a software layer and software is cheap to ship. That assumption is wrong in two compounding ways. Start with the chip, because this is where the cost cliff begins. Running AI inference locally requires a neural processing unit capable of roughly 35 to 40 trillion operations per second. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and Apple's A15 both topped out around 26 tops below the floor. To clear that threshold without draining the battery in an hour, chip makers must move to smaller manufacturing nodes, 3 nanometer, 4 nanometer, where performance per watt finally bends enough to make it viable. That node transition is not a linear cost step. A TSMC 3 nanometer wafer costs approximately $20,000 to fabricate versus $10,000 for 7 nanometers. Lower yields at cutting-edge nodes compound the per-chip price further. Apple's A17 Pro, the first mass-market 3nm smartphone chip, costs an estimated $120 to $150 per unit, roughly 3 times the A15 it replaced. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, rated at 98 tops, carries a wholesale price of $180 to $200, up from $130 to $150 for the Gen 2. That 30% chip price increase hit every major Android OEM simultaneously: Samsung, OnePlus, Xiaomi, Sony, because they all use the same Qualcomm chip. One supplier's pricing decision set a new floor for the entire premium Android market before a single retail price was announced. The chip is the first line item. It's not the only one. Running an AI model locally means keeping its weights resident in RAM during inference. A 3 billion parameter model at 4-bit quantization needs roughly 1.5 gigabytes just for those weights before the OS and open apps claim their share. That sets a hard floor of 8 gigabytes as the minimum viable configuration. Apple confirmed this directly. Apple Intelligence requires 8 GB RAM, which is exactly why it locked out the base iPhone 15, which shipped with 6 GB. The base iPhone 16 was upgraded to 8 GB specifically to qualify. LPDDR5X RAM costs OEMs approximately $3 to $5 per additional gigabyte. Moving from 6 GB to 8 GB adds $6 to $10 per unit. Across 50 million units, that's a $300 to $500 million annual input cost increase. This hurts mid-range phones most. Flagship phones were already at 12 GB. A $350 mid-range phone that previously ran on 6 GB now needs 8 GB to carry any AI features, a far more painful BOM increase at that price point than at $100-200. The Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra makes this concrete. Launched in January 2024 with Galaxy AI as its central marketing pillar, it came in at $1,229, $100 more than the S23 Ultra's $199. Counterpoint Research estimated the S24 Ultra's bill of materials was $50 to $60 higher, with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and 12GB RAM accounting for most of that increase. Samsung didn't pad margins to manufacture that gap. The raw component costs arrived before any retail pricing decision was made. Apple ran a parallel calculation with the iPhone 16. Tech Insights estimated the Pro BOM rose $30 to $40 versus the 15 Pro. Some was passed to consumers, some was absorbed. Either way, the cost is real and it went somewhere. The reasonable counter: competition fixed this before. 4G modems were expensive in 2012. High-refresh OLED screens cost a premium in 2019. Both went mid-range within 3 years. On-device AI is structurally different. It requires leading-edge nodes produced by an extremely small number of fabs. TSMC holds the dominant position. ASML is the sole manufacturer of the extreme ultraviolet lithography machines that make 3nm and 4nm chips possible. That's a two-company choke point, and neither has capacity to rapidly commoditize what they produce. Yields will improve, but the cost floor for AI-capable chips is higher and more durable than it ever was for modems or displays. IDC projects global smartphone average selling prices will reach $450 in 2024, up from $370 in 2021, with AI hardware requirements pulling the premium segment above $1,000 ASP. When the next phone announcement drops, ignore the marketing and look at three numbers: chip node, RAM spec, battery size. A 3nm chip, 8 GB or more of RAM, and a battery above $4,500 mAh means you're paying for real AI infrastructure. If you want AI features without the flagship price, the best value in 2025 and 2026 will almost certainly be last year's flagship chip, still fully AI capable, significantly cheaper once the next generation launches. The cost is real. The hardware is the reason. Subscribe. Every week we follow one cost mechanism from the fab to your wallet.